Are you a nurse outside Canada and you are planning to immigrate to Canada through the PR pathway or through the work permit route, but you don't know exactly where to start from or what you have to actually do to start this whole process? Then get closer. The good thing is that this video is not just for nurses. In most of my videos, I just teach templates. So this same video can be applied to any other profession and anyone who plans to immigrate to Canada through the work permit route or the permanent residency route. If you know anyone who is interested in immigrating to Canada through the skilled worker route or trade route, then please watch this video to the end, because in this video I'll be sharing 7 tips you should look out for prior to your immigration or during your planning to immigrate to Canada. You must know that Canada has 13 provinces and territories, and each province or territory runs its things differently. And if you have been following me, I always talk about you deciding on which province you want to relocate to. But the question is, how can you even decide which province and where to start from? So on the first point, I'll talk about the things you have to consider when choosing a province. In choosing a province for your immigration, the first thing you have to look out for is their PR pathway. Know that the whole purpose of you wanting to immigrate to Canada is because you want to become a permanent resident, stay here, move with your family, eventually become a citizen and change your life and that of your generation forever. So in choosing a province, you have to make sure that is this province running any programs which will help immigrants become PR? Is this province having these shortages? Does this province really want me to relocate there? What are the support systems? Because each province that really need workers or immigrants to relocate to their province will make provisions for them. I know some provinces actually give financial support through your immigration. Some also give language support. Some also have associations and group which supports new immigrants. So these are the things you should look out for when deciding the province you want to be. Once you realize that a province has a clear pathway, assuming you decide that, okay, I want to go to Alberta because they are running a PMP for your occupation. If you're a nurse, if Alberta is running a PMP pathway for nurses. So for instance, once you have decided to, let's say you choose to go with Alberta and you know that Alberta is running a PMP program for healthcare workers, including nurses, then you can decide on that province. Then the other thing you have to look out for is the taxes, because each province have different tax rates. I am in British Columbia and I pay between 30 to 40% taxes every pay period. So in BC here, the taxes are kind of graduated. So the more you earn, the more your taxes are. But for me, before I decided to come to BC, I looked at other things, and that's what I want you to do. You don't just decide on based on one thing. One, BC gave me a clear PR pathway, which I'm now a PR here. In 6 months, I got a PR because I'm here in BC. You might not get that in other provinces. So you have to weigh the different options and the pros and cons, and then you decide. Although taxes are higher here, I love it because I got my PR here. So you just have to weigh your individual preferences and decide on which province you want to go. Another thing you should consider is cost of living. Know that in most places, the major cities have higher cost of living. So here in BC, Vancouver, which is the main city, would have higher cost of living. But if you are considering to cut down your cost of living, then you can even live on the outskirts or outside the main city. For me, I live outside town. I don't live in main Vancouver. So I will not have challenges with high cost of rent and other things. So cost of living is one of the major things you have to consider when choosing a province to move. The fourth thing you should consider when choosing a province is the weather. So personally, I chose BC because I did a research and I realized that BC, specifically Vancouver, Victoria, and some other places have the best weather in the whole of Canada. Guys, I don't like to be cold, so I had to do this research. So I knew I wouldn't go to any other places, irrespective of the cost of living, the taxes. I knew I have to be in BC because I didn't want too much cold. So this is also another thing you should really consider research about when choosing a province to immigrate to. The fifth item to consider when choosing a province is job availability and the competition in the job market. Places like Toronto, which is the main city for Ontario, have higher, although they may have a lot of jobs, the competition is very high there. So know that if you are planning to move to a place like Toronto, you might struggle finding a job. I know that there are other parts of Ontario, like the Northern Ontario, where there are more opportunities. So you can look at these dynamics. If you are considering a vibrant or a popular province, then you should look at the opportunities in the rural or the small communities in that province and see if you may want to rather move to those smaller communities where there may be more jobs and less competition for you. Once you have decided on which province you want to immigrate to, then you have to look at one, your own trade. So in this video, I'm using nurses as a case study. So as a nurse, once you have decided on the province, then you have to look at the nursing board in that province. Different nursing boards have different requirements. And remember that before you can easily immigrate to Canada through work permit or the PR pathway, it starts with your licensing and then getting your certifications equivalent to that province or to the Canadian standard. So if the credentialing authority or the board is very complicated or it's not friendly for immigration, you might be stuck up in the process and that will shatter all your dreams. So although that province is looking for nurses and healthcare workers, you have to make sure that the nursing board or the licensing authority has easy and laid down pathway for nurses or whichever your occupation is. For nurses, usually most provinces will require you to do the NNAS. But if you were trained in the United States, you might be exempted from this. And I know some other provinces, if you are trained in Australia, New Zealand, UK, they also have some expedited services or fast track routes for you. It's good to know the routes for your credential assessment so that you don't get stuck in the whole process. Some licensing authorities will require you to have some number of hours before they can start the process with you. Some nursing boards or licensing authorities will require you to be in Canada in person for them to assess you whether your skills are equivalent to the Canadian one. So be sure that the province you are choosing, especially if you are coming from Africa, you might need all your credentials done before you would even be able to move to Canada. So you might want to look for a province whereby you don't have to be here to do it, because it can be challenging also to get a visitor's visa just to come. But it's easier to come with a work permit. So I usually recommend coming either with the work permit or the PR straight, although it might not work for everybody. So if you want to come with the work permit or PR directly, then you have to make sure that you are signing up with the province whereby your licensing and everything can be done even when you are not in Canada. Personally, I trained in the US as a nurse, so I didn't have to be in Canada to do any of my licensing. I got my license from outside Canada. I did a full tutorial video on how I did that, so if you are interested, you can check out that video. The third thing you have to look at when planning your immigration to Canada is to look out for the employers who are hiring your skill. If you're a nurse, you have to look out for the hospitals or home care centers or places hiring nurses. No matter your trade, just look out these companies and then you go down and look into what these companies are requiring, because you can get your license and everything, but mind you, if most of the companies require 2 years experience, 1 year experience, and I realized that even for me personally, when I started my process, I licensed with Alberta, but I realized that Alberta was looking for more ICU, they were looking for more specialized nurses. So it was hard for me to get a job there. So you have to look at the province and look at the things they are looking for, the employers there, what exact requirements, and whether you meet those requirements before finally settling on that. In case you have already obtained your license with a different province and you realize that you are not getting a job, Canada has that intra-mobility program where you can easily move your license from a province to province, and then you can easily do that and get a license at where you think you would have more opportunities, more job opportunities, where your experiences is more needed and where you have a clearer or easier PR pathway. You can easily switch in between and go for that. The fourth thing I would like you to also do is to write any exams that you will need. So for nurses, it is NCLEX, and then for every other person, you might need the IELTS. There are some jobs which also want your language proficiency as part of the application process. So sometimes you may need a letter from your school saying that you are proficient in English. Sometimes you may also need the IELTS, which is also needed for the PR pathway, either PMP or express entry. You will need the IELTS. So the moment you decide on all these things, then next is to write your NCLEX if you are a nurse, and then you can also write your IELTS. Usually is the general one for the express entry. In terms of the NCLEX, some provinces can give you a provisional license whilst you are still preparing to write your NCLEX. But the risk of this is that in case you move to Canada and then you attend the NCLEX and you don't pass, it can affect your status and everything. So usually I recommend that you write your NCLEX everything before moving. But if you are very sure that, oh, you definitely pass, or you are very confident and you might be in a hurry to relocate, it is okay. But just make sure that once you arrive in Canada, usually most hospitals might give you a few months to take your NCLEX, and make sure you nail it to prevent any distortion, because I know people who have come here and they couldn't pass the NCLEX and it was very frustrating for them. So if you are able, I would suggest that you write it once and for all and be done with it, so that once you come and you are working, you don't have to think too much about writing any exam. Once this is done, the fifth thing I want you to consider is the salary. So in Canada, most provinces are unionized. So like BC, we have the BCNU, which is the nurse union, and usually they have a salary scale. So it's based on your experience. You can also look at the benefits of the job, because some appointments come with extra benefits like dental, eye. Some will also cover your children, your spouse, and other things. Some also offer relocation benefits. Depending on the nursing union or the hospital, you may have some of these packages. So it's good to find out. The next thing I'll talk about is immigration support. You have to make sure that your employer is aware that you will need some kind of immigration support, because most employers have to give you a document, or they'll refer you to consultants or government agencies, or they'll even refer you to where to go to get a support as a new immigrant. So whilst you are planning all these, you have to make sure if this employer is immigration friendly, if this employer welcomes immigrants, if this employer is providing support, because some of these provinces already have government support helping people relocate. So once you are in touch with the employer, they should also do the same and help you with your moving. If you need a document, if you need information, they should be able to give you the right resources, because this support is very important, especially for someone coming from outside Canada. You might need certain kind of information which only your employer will be the best person to assist you with. The last point I want to talk about is very important to me, because I've seen many nurses struggle with that, and that is the immersion plan. So when I talk about immersion, I'm talking about you as a nurse who was trained outside Canada, and now you are coming to Canada to work. There should be a plan for you to safely emerge into the whole system, because the Canadian health system is very different, especially for maybe Africa or other. For US, I'll say it's very similar, but even for me as a US nurse, I still had to learn a few things on the job. So for someone coming from Africa or other parts of the world, you will need a good immersion plan, because I've heard of stories where people had to get their license revoked because they couldn't merge into the system, and that caused a lot of safety issues, and finally their license were revoked. So you have to make sure that wherever you are planning to work or wherever you are going, ask them what is the immersion plan you have for new nurses or for nurses coming from outside Canada. How many months of training do I have? Are there any materials? Because I know some provinces do those competency assessments. Some also provide the bridging programs, which are really good. It helps you get into the system and understand the Canadian nursing culture and everything. So make sure that the hospital or wherever you are working has these programs, mentorship program, preceptorship program, enough orientation hours for you to be very comfortable and familiar with the floor or unit or anywhere you'll be working, and that can save you your license. Guys, if this video was useful to you, I want you to subscribe and share and comment, Maybe you are interested in a particular content. Just comment it there and then I'll talk about it in my next video. If you like to talk to me about your career, I have a link in the description and my bio. Please click on the link and let's talk. My name is Nash Christie, and for those who don't know me, I moved from US to Canada. I got my job even whilst I was outside Canada. And once I got to Canada, I became a PR in 6 months, and I'm on a journey to help you do the same. Thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.